This is the 71st episode of the Mind Your Noodles podcast, and this week I'm going to be discussing 5 ways for executives to transform an organization. And these 5 ways are 1, synthetic thinking, 2, decision making, 3, innovation, 4, executive data analytics, 5, customer in design. So let's start with number 1, synthetic thinking. Some people call it systems thinking, and this is a way for an executive to look at their organization quite a bit differently. And the way they can go about doing this is getting away from analytic thinking, which would be another method that people use to look at their organization. That's breaking everything down into pieces. We did it as a child where we got a new toy, we broke it apart, and sometimes the pieces wouldn't get put back together again. And it's interesting because most of our organizations are designed this way. We have these silos that we've created, and you have sales, and you've got marketing, and you've got operations, and you've got accounting, and you've got internet information technology and other areas within an organization. So we naturally break them down, and then what we try to do is optimize each of those pieces in this analytical mindset. So the synthetic thinking is all about systems thinking, looking at things as a system and realizing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In other words, there's synthesis between each of the parts that create something greater than itself. So it's not an addition game like an analytical thinker would typically use. Synthetic thinking is realizing that these interactions are the important, and we get exponential growth by virtue of optimizing these individual pieces, these interaction of parts. So we go about synthetic thinking by looking through first a customer lens, because customers don't see all these silos. Just think about it. As a customer, you don't care that if you call into an organization and you get a contact center agent and they say, well, I'll have to pass it off to somebody else because I don't know the answer, or you need more technical expertise or whatever. It's very frustrating because then we have to repeat ourselves over and over again to somebody in that organization in order to get to the right person. So we don't see the fact that there are silos there. The only thing we are focused in on as a customer is getting done what we're trying to get done. It might be solving a problem. It could be buying a new product or service, or any of a number of things. And so we need to get that mindset within our organization through synthetic thinking and looking at things through that customer lens. Then the second thing that helps with the synthetic thinking is how do you think in your organization? What do you do in terms of rewards and motivation and control in your organization and centralization and things of that sort? And so how is that system put together, and the interaction of the parts? These are the things that hold the organization together. And what you'll typically find is that you can get greater amount of improvement in an organization when you think synthetically versus analytically. The second thing, decision making. And decision making was one of those things that often, well, most of the time, it's done emotionally. And through the hierarchy of an organization. In other words, the person on the front line often doesn't get a chance to make a decision about even their own work, never mind about what the strategy of the company is. That's left to people in the hierarchy, whether their input is good or bad. Regardless, what you need in decision making is to look at more than one option. And this is one of the myopic views organizations have, is they look at one option, they go with it, they make the decision and forge ahead, and then they move on to the next decision. And so you need to be able to set up a decision making system in your organization, or method, for you to be able to look at something and then say, okay, have we looked at a lot of different options, or am I just super focused on one that I like? and you find that so much in organizations. So you need a method to go through it. And you got to be prepared once you make the decision to pivot on it, scrap it, refine it, whatever needs to happen with it. You got to kind of stick with it for a while in order to make it better, because that initial decision isn't the thing that you usually are going to land on if you're going to make good decisions. One other thing about decision making is doing it on a very small scale if you can. I see whole organizations go through a decision-making process. We're going to reorg, or we're going to do this with a customer, whatever this is. And then they forge ahead with it and they blow up their whole system. Their sales go away, their costs go up, and a whole lot of bad things. So doing things and making changes on a small scale is a way of going about and doing our decision-making process. The third thing is innovation. And innovation is so key. You know, we talk about making improvements in organization, but I'm talking about whole new products and services. You've got a pipeline of sales within your organization, but you also need a pipeline of innovative products and services so that you can kind of stay ahead of the game. A lot of people, what they wind up doing, or a lot of organizations and executives, what they do in their organization is they copy other organizations. Oh, they're doing Lean. Oh, they're doing Six Sigma. I got to do that to kind of keep up. Well, that's never going to get you ahead. You're always copying what somebody else is doing. You've got to find a new way or a new product or a new service that other people just don't have, and they're copying you, meaning your competitors are copying you. So innovation is very key as a way to transform your organization. Okay, the fourth thing is executive data analytics. And here I'm talking about two things. One are the data themselves, because when you look through a customer lens and you start to realize what your thinking is about motivation and control and things of that sort, you will come up with more customer-oriented types of data. And these are the data that executives need to focus themselves in on. So that's the first part of executive data analytics. The second, and I see so few executives using statistical process control in order to look at their data. They are looking at their data month over month, comparing this month to last month, and that's the definition of data insanity from my standpoint, because you're looking at just a small month-to-month comparison as opposed to plotting data over time and then learning a little bit about the statistical process control limits to know whether things are getting better or not, and what things are attributable to the system and what things are outside of the system, either by an individual or special events and special causes that might be affecting the data. So executive data analytics. The fifth thing is customer in design. And this is about when you've looked through the customer lens and you realize how you think, is starting to experiment with different ways of going about how you've designed your organization. Remember, I talked earlier about the silos. You got sales, and you got customer service, and you got finance, and you got operations, and all these things are separate, and they aren't designed very well to talk to each other to service a customer or make products in an organization. So designing customer in allows you to put a design together that actually is helpful to customers, so that when you are calling in, you aren't being transferred to different parts of the organization in order to find an answer, or using that. Oftentimes organizations use it as an excuse. Well, I can't do anything. I'm just the customer service agent, and that doesn't go over very well with the customer. So with that thinking in mind, how can we redesign our organization to be more helpful to a customer in provisioning services or making products? So those are the 5 things: synthetic thinking, decision-making, innovation, executive data analytics, customer in design. Those are 5 ways for executives to transform an organization. Talk to you next Monday.